It could have happened to anyone. It wasn't my fault. I just defended myself. Though, it wasn't really self-defense. Actually, he attacked me first, and then I attacked him. It was ridiculous, and the outcome was horrible. I was just walking home from work, past a park where no one usually walks, because there are no streetlights. There was nothing to be afraid of. It's a small, quiet town. Everybody knows each other. I didn't think anyone could rob me here. Nothing like that had ever happened in my life. I'd never been mugged before, and then this guy came out of the darkness and blocked my way. I wasn't so much afraid of getting beaten up, but he just caught me unaware. This was an unusual situation for me. First, this tipsy guy asked for change. I told him I didn't carry cash. Obviously, there was no reason to be polite to him. And then the guy said,
"Give me your phone!"
Now it was clear that I was being robbed. I don't know why, but at that point, it seemed like it was the most appropriate thing to let him rob me. Maybe I thought there would be a fight in which I would be defeated. Or maybe I was afraid the drunken bastard would pull a knife out of his jacket. I just don't know. It was the first time this had happened to me. I was scared, or even stunned by what had happened. I gave him the phone. The satisfied thug put it in his pocket and gave me the way. Only after walking a couple of dozen feet did I realize that I had lost quite an expensive device. Out of the blue, I gave my phone to some puny drunk, gave him something to be proud of, made him think he was entitled to it, that he was strong enough to rip someone off on the street, and it made me feel ashamed. I felt guilty about my own cowardice. Well, I'd never had to fight in my life, but I wasn't weak either. Surely I would have won if I had taken the fight. Or maybe that slouchy creature would have just disappeared if I had asked him to back off. Instead, I fell for his feigned courage and gave up the phone. He had probably just been beaten a lot, and it was nothing to him to get punched, so he tried his luck. That's what I was thinking. Walking down the park, while anger was boiling inside me, I decided to catch up with the thug, give him a good kicking and take my phone back. So I did. He didn't even try to get away, but walked leisurely, as if nothing had happened. I jumped up and kicked him in the back. The drunk guy's face hit the pavement. I got on top of him, flipped him over, and brought my fist down on his face. Oh, I was shaking with anger and elation.
"Freak! Scum! Piece of shit!"
I shouted with each new blow. He didn't even have a chance to fight me back. The thug's face was a bloody mess. When I noticed that his head was hanging back and forth, I knew I'd overdone it. It went on for too long. Alas, he wasn't breathing. There was no pulse. When I lifted the guy up, his head was hanging at an unnatural angle. It looked like his neck was broken, and his jaw was sliding to the side. What had I done? I don't know what to do now. Should I call the police? Confess that I had accidentally beaten a burglar to death? I'm not about to go to jail because of some drunkard on the street. I couldn't think of anything smarter than dragging him to a ravine beside the road and covering him with leaves. So I did, and while covering the body, my phone fell out of his pocket. I had completely forgotten about it. It was evidence. They'd find a dead body, and he'd have my phone in his pocket with my information and fingerprints. I'd be on the list of the dumbest killers. Thanks for giving it back, I said to the corpse. It really did look like the goon had repented and decided to give back what he'd stolen. That's what you deserve. I thought at the time that it couldn't have ended any other way for him. He had a criminal lifestyle. Sooner or later, someone was bound to kill him. It just so happened that it was me. That was my excuse. Did I sleep well over the next couple of nights? Not really. I was walking around, remembering the details of the last night. I remembered burying a man in the leaves, washing the blood off my hands. Of course, I was constantly expecting trouble. I thought they'd come to my house, asking some questions. The stress was on me all the time. It was like the police had already opened a case and were actively investigating it. I wondered if the investigators could come after me, or if they didn't have enough resources to do so. People say that the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. Apparently, it's true. For 2 days, I fought the urge to go back there and look around. I don't know why. It was like I wanted to make sure everything was okay. On the 3rd day, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to walk down the path past the park in the evening. It was still light. The setting sun was shining well into the ravine, and there was a dead pale hand sticking out of a pile of golden leaves. It shocked me. They still hadn't found the body. How is that possible? Dozens of people walk by here every day. There is a human-shaped mound of leaves in the park. Even a hand sticks out of it. No one would miss it. Moreover, if you look closely, you can make out a dark jacket. Are people blind? I don't know why, but I wanted that thug to be found before he started decomposing. At least he could get a decent burial. His relatives should know that he was no longer alive and stop waiting. Instead, he's lying in the park and nobody cares about him. It's sad. Dreams are rare for me, though it wasn't a dream, but something on the verge between dreaming and reality. In the morning, when dawn was breaking outside the window, I began to think that there was someone in my apartment. I live alone, but through the dream, I heard someone walking in the hallway. A second before I woke up, I heard the front door slam, as if closed by a violent draft. Then I got up and ran out into the hallway. It was empty. The door was locked, but later I found dirty boot prints and wet leaves stuck to the floor. The footprints weren't mine. I never walk around the house in dirty shoes. So was it a dream or not? Thinking about the deceased, I remembered beating him up. Could such a death be considered accidental? I wanted him to pay with his life for my humiliation. Did I wish he was dead? I don't remember, but I thought he deserved what had happened to him, so the guilt after what I had done didn't weigh much on me. Somehow, I just hoped that I could get away with it. There was no fault on my part, knowing that I would be punished according to the law. I didn't think I was guilty. Yeah, if that thug had accidentally killed me, he wouldn't have been remorseful for a second, and all he would have been thinking about was how to save his own ass. He deserved what happened to him. He deserved it. I convinced myself of that, so I wouldn't accidentally let my conscience and my soul. The next morning, I woke up with bloody hands. It was real blood. There were bloodstains on my fingers, on my knuckles. I thought my nose had been bleeding in the night and had wiped it off in my sleep. But no, my face was clean. There was blood only on my hands, as if I'd beaten someone the night before. It was clear that the blood couldn't have come out of nowhere, so I thought it was just a hallucination. I took some pictures on my phone and sent them to a close friend I could trust.
What happened? Cut yourself?
He asked in a return message. Yep, I texted, making sure he saw the same thing. Again, there were muddy footprints in my hallway, a maple leaf stuck to the wallpaper. What the hell? I washed my hands several times, scrubbed the bloody clots from under the fingernails. The weather was damp that day. The golden autumn leaves had turned into a slippery brown mass. The corpse was still lying in the ravine. Both already blue arms were sticking out of the wet piles. A part of the dead face and a blackened bloodstain under his nose was also evident. Why didn't anyone notice the corpse? Should I have called the police anonymously so the body could finally be found? The dead man was lying in plain sight, and if you sniff around the ravine, you can smell the stench of a dead body. People, open your eyes! Find him! I have decided that I will no longer walk this route. No longer do I want to see the body and the way it decomposes. It wasn't my concern from now on. I wanted to get back to my life. That goon was dead, and I needed to keep living, go to work, do day-to-day stuff. Many people have their dark secrets, and I was no exception. If only I could share it with someone else. That is the case you can't tell your best friend. Even if he hadn't told anyone, he probably would have started to drift away from me and eventually cut off communication. I probably would have done the same thing myself. My decision to avoid anything related to recent events seemed to have had a positive effect. I hadn't thought about the dead man buried in the leaves all day, but the deceased reminded me of himself. I saw him outside my house, not far from the parking lot. It was the same guy. He was standing firm, though he was obviously dead. He had blue skin, black circles under the eyes, and cloudy pupils. His head was tilted, and his jaw slanted to the side. Also, there were leaves stuck to his face. It was horrible. I pretended not to notice him and turned sharply into the entryway. That night, I secured my apartment with 2 locks. How to live with that? How could I sleep, remembering everything? Actually, I slept quite well. Being too tired at work, I never had any trouble falling asleep, but I was having a hard time every morning. I woke up with bloody hands again. It was exactly the same bloody pattern as the night before, as if someone had painted my hands at night. I stood at the sink for a long time, watching the blood-pink water run down the drain. Now, I got into the nervous habit of constantly looking at my hands to see if I washed the blood off everywhere. Each day, I had to clean up the traces of my crime. So did I have to clean the hallway every morning. I compared the muddy sole prints to all my shoes. Those weren't mine. My life had become insane. The restless dead man appeared not for nothing. He seemed to tell me with his presence that we were even. He had returned my stolen phone, so now I had to confess. "No, go to hell. I won't go to jail because of you. Someone will find your corpse. They will bury you, and we'll be done with it. Get lost. I'm not going to be responsible for your death. It's your own fault. You should have gone to work instead of pestering honest guys like me at night." My colleagues began to notice that I had become nervous. My boss said my face was twitchy and reminded me that I had some days off. That's not the option. I'd go crazy alone with my thoughts. Better to immerse myself in work and not think about anything. If it were up to me, I wouldn't go home at all. As soon as I left the workplace, all my problems began. Now a dead man met me in the park. He was looking worse. His face was swollen and green. His stomach was bloated under the jacket. He was standing in a dark part of the square where the light of the lanterns could hardly reach. I could see the dead man well, but other people stubbornly failed to notice him, even though they passed very close by. Why was I the only one who saw him? What did he want from me? To go to the police station? To tell them I'd killed a man and hidden his body under a pile of leaves? What difference would that make to anyone? It wouldn't bring him back. Did he want an excuse? It was time to apologize to him, just to say a few words. I was scared, but I approached him. The damp, rotten smell hit my nose, though I stopped a few feet away. Or maybe it was just my imagination since I saw a decaying body in front of me. "Look, I don't even know what your name is," I said, and immediately corrected myself. I mean, what your name was. I'm sorry about what happened. That wasn't on purpose. Sorry about that. I would fix it if I could, but I can't change it now. Forgive me, but it's your own fault, isn't it? Don't come to me again. Please leave me alone. The dead man just stood there in the dark with his head rolled to the side. His dead face expressed nothing. He didn't react in any way to my words. I just hoped he would disappear and never return. His soul would calm down, and he would let me go. Nothing had changed. Morning, bloody hands. I wash them off and get ready to go to work. But today is my day off. I need to focus on something, so I don't have time to worry. It's snowing outside, so there are muddy puddles instead of footprints in the hallway. How does he get in through a locked door? A friend suggested meeting for a drink. I refused. That was definitely a bad idea. I'd get drunk and lousy. Then I'd tell a drunken story about how I'd beaten a mugger to death. Turns out I'm capable of killing someone in a fit of rage. Didn't know that before. I just got dressed and went wandering the streets, avoiding the park and the square. I just wanted to get on with my life, so I wandered the streets, trying to enjoy the walk until I got cold. On my way home, I met him in the entryway. A horrible, disheveled corpse was standing on the landing. and something disgusting was dripping from his nose. I couldn't take it anymore.
That's enough. I'm going to confess.
This time I decided to go to the local police department. Once there, I had turned myself in.
I killed a man.
I finally said it out loud. It didn't make me feel any better. I was shaking, but I said it. To my surprise, they didn't take me in for questioning right away. But first, they tried to escort me out of the station, threatening to send me to talk to the investigator if I didn't leave. Actually, that's what I wanted. Finally, they interrogated me, and I told everything as it was. There was a temptation to make it look good for myself, to say that I had been attacked, and it was just self-defense. But no, it was an honest confession. My phone was taken away. My life wasn't in danger. I caught up with the robber, beat him to death without sparring, and then buried him in the leaves. They believed me until the moment when I had to show them the hidden body. Officers brought me to the park in handcuffs. I showed them the ravine. Then they made me go down and show where the body was. But it was gone. Maybe someone had already found him and taken him away, I suggested. The cops began to do some research. They called the morgue, but no bodies with traces of beatings were found in recent days. Moreover, no one had ever reported anyone missing. After that, they doubted my words.
Are you sure you killed him?
One of the cops asked.
Perhaps you had a fight with someone, knocked him out, but then he woke up and went home.
Obviously, I confessed that I had been walking by the ravine for days, and there was a dead body in a pile of leaves. Some officer reminded the investigator that it was autumn and psychos were on the edge of a flare-up. Never thought I would have to prove to the cops that I was a criminal. They didn't believe me when I swore and repeated my story.
Are you saying that you hid the body and someone dug it up and took it home? There is no body. What do you want, boy? Shall we arrest you for the murder of a non-existent person?
They asked me. I had nothing to answer.
What did he look like?
The cop asked. Not too tall, dark-haired, about 30 years old. Frankly speaking, I no longer remembered what he looked like when he was alive.
What was his name?
The investigator seemed angry.
How would I know what his name was? It was the first and last time I saw him.
I yelled like a madman. It made me look like a character in some movie where the guy starts acting all nervous and people no longer believe him. I used to think it was pretty stupid behavior. If you act like a psycho, they'll think you're a psycho. But I was just losing my nerve. It made me feel helpless.
Hey, we're going to charge you for false reports and perjury. If you wish, we can put you in jail for 5 days,
threatened the policeman.
Do you want it? If we find a body, we'll come and see you, for sure. Now go home, get a good night's sleep.
They talk rudely to me. Nobody took my words seriously. I came here to confess. I'm a criminal. I'm a murderer. I may be dangerous. I wanted to be punished, and they just sent me home. Every morning my sleep is interrupted by a noise in the hallway. There's shuffling and stomping, and then the door slams. My hands are covered in someone else's blood. I go to the bathroom, trying not to step on the muddy marks. Wash my hands, soaping them over and over again. The skin on my hands is already dry from the soap. I look out the window or walk down the street and see him everywhere. He stands in the yard, in the square, on the sports fields. Every day he looks worse and worse. His fingers are blackened and his nails have fallen off. Rotten flesh slides off his face, exposing his skull. The man I killed is rotting before my eyes. This is my punishment. I missed the opportunity to repent for what I did. Didn't do it in time, and now I have to bear my guilt. Why is he doing this to me? When I see him on the street, I stop and repeat, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Passers-by look at me. They probably think I'm crazy.